Sleep did not come easily. I lay in my bed, the fire long since guttered out, the only sound in the chamber the steady tick of the enchanted clock on the mantel. And still, every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, her trembling lips, the frantic widening of her eyes, her mouth stained faintly red from my blood. I shifted, turning to my side, but the sheets felt stifling, trapping me in the heat of my own thoughts. What in Merlin's name was she? I pressed my tongue against the small wound where she had bitten me, the sharp sting igniting the memory all over again. She had licked it, without hesitation, as though it were instinct. And then she had begged, "Please, don't make me." The words were carved into me now. They echoed in the hollow space between my ribs, chasing every attempt at reason away. What didn't she want me to make her do? Confess? Surrender? Feed? I rolled onto my back and covered my eyes with the heel of my hand, exhaling sharply. This was dangerous, obsessive. She was an apprentice, a girl not even past her 20th year. Yet I could not banish the image of her pressed against the shelves, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts, as if she stood on the edge of something far darker than either of us admitted. And damn me, I wanted to push her over that edge. My hand curled in the sheets, the other drifting unconsciously to my chest, pressing hard against the racing thud of my heart. I imagined again the warmth of her body so close to mine, the way her gaze had flickered to my throat, hungry, feral. She was hiding something. That much was clear. But what was worse, that she might tell me, or that she might never. I turned over once more, restless, cursing under my breath as though language itself might burn the thoughts away. It did not. When dawn finally crept through the narrow slit of my window, I had not truly slept, only turned, shifted, stewed, caught in a torment of desire and suspicion. And I knew, as I pulled myself from the tangled sheets and prepared for the day, that I would not, could not, leave the matter alone. The morning was crisp, the kind of autumn air that carried the scent of leaves and the faint promise of frost. I had already resigned myself to the noise of the day. The entire school would be pouring onto the pitch to witness the Gryffindor versus Slytherin match. Normally I endured it from the staff stands with a grimace, cataloging fouls and silently praying for injuries on the opposing side. But before I could make my way there, she appeared at my side in the corridor, cloak drawn tight, her cheeks flushed, not from fever or weakness this time, but from something approaching eagerness. "Professor," she said, adjusting the fastenings at her throat, "may I sit with you at the match?" The request was so odd. Students rarely sought my company voluntarily outside the classroom, much less at Quidditch, where I was a notorious figure of disdain. I gave her a long look, searching her face for the flicker of another motive. "Why?" I asked flatly. Her eyes darted away for a moment before she forced them back to mine. "I want to watch it with you." A simple answer, but her voice trembled at the edges as though it cost her something. I should have refused. Every instinct demanded distance, and yet my traitorous lips curved just slightly before I smoothed them back into their proper thin line. "Very well," I murmured, sweeping past her. "But do not expect me to explain the rules." When we reached the stands, her presence at my side drew a few curious glances from the other professors, though none dared comment. She sat closer than she needed to, shoulders brushing mine whenever the crowd shifted or cheered. I felt it acutely, every brush, every lean. Slytherin scored first, and her soft laugh of delight slipped into the cold morning air. But then, I noticed her eyes again. They weren't following the quaffle, not the bludgers, not even the seeker. She was watching the players streak across the sky, yes, but her focus lingered strangely, unnervingly on the collision, the bloodied lip of a beater who caught a bludger wrong, the sharp cry of pain as another student narrowly avoided being knocked from his broom. And then, damnation, her gaze slid to my throat again. I shifted in my seat, deliberately folding my arms across my chest, as if the movement were casual. "Enjoying yourself?" I asked under my breath. She startled, blinking, and then nodded too quickly. "Yes, very much." But her fingers were white where they gripped the edge of the bench. I turned my eyes back to the match, jaw tight, though my awareness of her pressed in on me like a physical thing. I could not, would not, ignore it much longer. The noise of the crowd dulled the moment I guided her beneath the wooden stairs of the bleachers. The world above roared with the match, rain pounding overhead, but down here it was shadows and closeness, the heavy smell of damp earth and wet wood surrounding us. She stood before me, her back nearly against the wall of slick boards, eyes wide, uncertain. I stepped closer, deliberately, until I loomed over her. She tilted her chin up, the tension in her shoulders obvious. She expected me to kiss her mouth again, expected, perhaps, another demanding claim. But this time I changed course. My lips brushed her neck instead, just at the place where the curve of her jaw met the delicate hollow. I felt her tense, and then melt against me with a quiet, shuddering breath. She clutched at my robes, hugging me tightly, pulling me into her despite the rain-soaked fabric that plastered us together. Her body was warm against mine, a delicious contrast to the chill around us. I could feel her rapid breathing, her heart racing, the heat of her body searing through the layers between us. Her breath hitched as I kissed lower, tasting rain and skin. She panted against my ear, each exhale hot and desperate. Then stiffened, her hands clutching at my shoulders. I froze, frowning at the sudden change. She buried her face in the crook of my neck, panting heavily, her body pressed to mine but trembling. "What is it?" I murmured, lowering my voice to a growl meant for only her. My hand stilled, though I did not pull away. "Tell me." Her nails dug into my arms as if anchoring herself. She shook her head, muffling a strangled sound against my throat. I thought it was nerves, hesitation, modesty. But I was wrong. Inside her, the hunger burned, a sharp, aching desire that had nothing to do with innocence. She wanted me, yes, but not only in the way I thought. The pounding of my pulse against her lips, the rush of blood under my skin, called to something deeper, darker. Her fangs ached. Her restraint burned like fire. She clung to me tighter, panting raggedly, fighting the animal pull to sink her teeth into my throat, to taste what she craved most. I did not know. To me it was merely passion restrained, arousal battling nerves. I only held her closer, misinterpreting her trembling as fear of her own desire. And above us the rain poured harder, drowning out the sound of her muffled whimper as she fought herself, fought the urge, fought me. I pulled back, my breath coming harder than I intended. Her eyes were wide, luminous in the shadowed space beneath the bleachers, rain still dripping in rivulets from her hair. She looked frightened, not of me, but of something else entirely. Slowly, carefully, I raised a hand to her face. My thumb brushed the trembling line of her jaw, tilting her chin upward until she had no choice but to look at me. "Tell me," I murmured. My voice was rougher than I liked, too raw, betraying how much restraint it cost me not to crush her against the wall and take what I wanted. She shook her head violently, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Her lips trembled, but no words came. I leaned closer, my forehead nearly touching hers. "Are you afraid I will force you into something you do not want?" Her response was immediate, a frantic shake of her head, the press of her hands against my chest. No, she whispered, the first word breaking free like glass under pressure. Her voice cracked, desperate, pleading. No, that's not it. Then what? I demanded, though my thumb stroked her jaw in a gentleness that contradicted the edge in my tone. Her eyes brimmed then, tears spilling over as she choked on her confession. I'm afraid, she faltered, breath hitching, nails biting into my robes as if to hold herself together. I'm afraid I'll hurt you. The words struck me silent. For the first time in years, I had no ready answer, no biting retort, no clinical detachment. I stared at her, truly stared. Her tears, her trembling, the sincerity radiating from every fiber of her body. You want me? I said lowly, as if trying to test the words aloud to make sense of them. She nodded, sobbing softly. Yes. And yet you believe... My thumb traced the corner of her mouth, lingering as I forced her eyes to stay on mine. That your desire would wound me? She swallowed, trembling harder now. Her silence was enough of an answer. My heart pounded, not from arousal this time, but from confusion laced with a strange, creeping dread. Something was wrong, something I did not yet understand. But in that moment, with her beneath me, fragile and fierce all at once, all I could do was cup her face in both hands and murmur, "Then enlighten me, before I push you past a line you cannot return from." Her eyes shone through the rain dark, pupils wide, lips parted as though the words were about to pour out. I could feel it. She was on the brink of giving me what I demanded, but instead she crumpled. Her hands slipped from my chest, curling into fists at her sides as she shook her head again and again, tears spilling freely now. I can't, she whispered, voice trembling like a bowstring pulled too tight. Not yet. The admission burned. Every nerve in me screamed to shake the truth from her, to drag it from her tongue, to make her trust me with whatever secret gnawed her to shreds. And yet, she looked so fragile. She, so frightened, and so very, very genuine. I exhaled sharply, my hand still framing her face, though I let my thumbs soften against her damp cheeks. You drive me to madness, I muttered under my breath, half to myself, half to her. Her lips curved in a small, pained smile. I know. That little smile cut me deeper than her tears. I could have kissed her then, I nearly did. My mouth hovered inches from hers, the rain cooling the heat that roared between us. But instead I pressed my lips to her forehead, lingering, unwilling to let go. Go, I whispered finally, stepping back though every muscle in me resisted. Before I forget my sense and take more than you're willing to give. She nodded quickly, wrapping her arms around herself as though warding off the storm inside her more than the rain. She fled up the steps, vanishing into the crowd. I stayed behind, standing under the bleachers long after the students' cheers swallowed her retreat. My hands curled into fists at my sides, jaw tight, chest aching. She wanted me. She had said it outright, and yet she feared hurting me. I ground my teeth, staring at the soaked pitch as the match carried on above. What in Merlin's name was she hiding?